So again, you have to get the visa to get out of the country. And actually in 75, I played Wimbledon and my family came. The whole family was out of the country at the
Sobrang
same
di ko pa mapaniwala. Maraming salamat sa suporta. Sana patuloy yung suporta niyo sa akin. Kamusta mga kapong Pinoy? Surprise! Excited na akong imbitahin kayong lahat na manood sa mga laban ko sa Mubadala Abu Dhabi Open.
Tennis world explodes. Navratilova calls out racism as Eala sparks international incident and Sinner nearly dies on court. Welcome back to Champions Tennisitics, where we don't just report the news. We expose the truth the establishment doesn't want you to hear. And folks, buckle up, because what you're about to hear is not your typical tennis story. This is about disrespect, redemption, survival, and a question that is currently setting the entire sport on fire. Why the racism? We're talking about Martina Navratilova, the legend who has never been afraid to speak truth to power, publicly erupting at the Australian Open organizers. We're talking about Filipino sensation Alex Eala being treated like a second-class citizen while thousands of her fans were crammed into unsafe conditions. We're talking about a defending champion who nearly collapsed on court in scenes that looked more like a medical emergency than a tennis match. And we're talking about an international incident that has the ITF watching very, very closely. This isn't just tennis drama. This is a reckoning. This is the moment when the old guard's failures are being exposed in real time, and the consequences could reshape how the sport treats its rising stars forever. So forget everything you think you know about genteel tennis etiquette, because what happened over the past week in Melbourne and Manila has torn that facade to shreds. Let's start with the explosion that has everyone talking. The treatment of Alex Eala at the Australian Open has escalated from whispered complaints to a full-blown international crisis, and Martina Navratilova just threw gasoline on the fire. The 18-time Grand Slam champion looked at what happened to Eala, looked at the chaotic and potentially dangerous scenes that unfolded, and didn't hold back. She called it what many were thinking but were too polite or too scared to say out loud: unacceptable, disrespectful, and yes, she raised the question that is now trending across social media and sports networks worldwide. Why the racism? Now, before we dive deeper, let's establish the facts, because this story is explosive enough without exaggeration. Alex Eala is not just another tennis player. She's a global phenomenon. She's the pride of the Philippines, a nation of over 100 million people who are rabid sports fans and who have been desperately waiting for a tennis star they can call their own. Eala represents the future of Asian tennis, a region that tennis administrators have been trying to crack for decades. She brings eyeballs. She brings passion. She brings sold-out crowds and viral moments. In short, she brings exactly what the sport needs as it tries to expand beyond its traditional Western European and North American strongholds. So what did the Australian Open organizers do with this rising superstar? They buried her. They scheduled her match on Court 6, a secondary venue that is, to be blunt, barely adequate for a player of her stature and drawing power. For those unfamiliar with Melbourne Park, Court 6 is not where you put your marquee attractions. It's a cramped facility with limited seating, poor sight lines, and logistical infrastructure that simply cannot handle the kind of crowds that Eala attracts. And attract them she did. Thousands of Filipino fans, many of whom had traveled from across Australia, and even from the Philippines itself, descended on Court 6 draped in the national colors, waving flags, chanting, singing, and creating an atmosphere that was simultaneously beautiful and terrifying. Beautiful because it showcased the genuine passion and love that Eala inspires. Terrifying because the court was never designed to handle that volume of humanity. Fans were packed shoulder to shoulder. The walkways were clogged. People were climbing over barriers and squeezing into spaces that were never meant to accommodate them. It was a safety disaster waiting to happen. And where were the Grand Slam dignitaries during all this? Sipping champagne in the shade of the premium hospitality suites, completely oblivious or completely indifferent to the chaos unfolding on the outer courts. That's the image that has burned itself into the minds of tennis fans around the world. The contrast could not be starker. While corporate sponsors enjoyed air-conditioned comfort, actual fans, the people who pay the ticket prices, buy the merchandise, and make the sport viable, were being treated like cattle. Martina Navratilova saw this, and she was not having it. The Czech-American legend has never been one to stay silent when she sees injustice, whether it's gender inequality, LGBTQ rights, or now, what she perceives as racial or cultural disrespect. She didn't use corporate speak or diplomatic language. She called it out directly. Her criticism strikes at something deeper than just a scheduling mistake. It's about systemic blindness. It's about an establishment that still operates with an outdated mental map of where tennis matters and who matters in tennis. The question Navratilova is essentially asking is this: would Coco Gauff have been scheduled on Court 6? Would Emma Raducanu? Would any rising star from a Western nation with a massive fan following have been relegated to a secondary court? The answer, if we're being honest, is almost certainly no. The schedulers would have recognized the commercial and sporting value and acted accordingly. But when it comes to Asian stars, there seems to be a lag, a hesitation, a refusal to acknowledge their drawing power until they've already won multiple majors, and the evidence is absolutely undeniable. This isn't necessarily about individual malice or conscious racism from any single scheduler. It's about institutional inertia and unconscious bias. It's about decision-makers who still see Asian markets as secondary, as emerging, as not quite as important as the traditional power centers. And that attitude, in the year 2026, is not just outdated. It's dangerous to the sport's future. The Filipino tennis community has given the Australian Tennis Federation 24 hours to explain themselves. Not 24 days. Not, we'll get back to you eventually. 24 hours. That's an ultimatum. And it's not an empty one, because the ITF, the International Tennis Federation, is watching. If the Australian Open is found to have violated protocols regarding player treatment, fan safety, or discriminatory practices, the consequences could be severe. We're talking sanctions. We're talking potential loss of Grand Slam status for specific events. We're talking about a public relations nightmare that could taint the tournament for years. The Australian Tennis Federation has been scrambling. Their initial response was the standard corporate playbook: express regret, promise to review procedures, claim it was an unfortunate oversight. But that's not going to cut it this time. The fans aren't buying it. The Filipino community isn't buying it. And most importantly, voices like Navratilova's are making sure this doesn't just disappear in the next news cycle. What makes this even more explosive is the timing. Tennis is at a crossroads. The sport has been desperately trying to grow its footprint in Asia, recognizing that the future of tennis demographics lies in markets like China, Japan, India, and Southeast Asia. Tournaments have been throwing money at Asian expansion. The WTA has added events. Prize money has increased. There's been a lot of talk about diversity and inclusion. But talk is cheap. When it actually mattered, when there was a real opportunity to show respect to an Asian star and her fans, the Australian Open fumbled catastrophically. The optics are terrible. And in the modern world, optics matter. Social media has amplified this story beyond what any traditional news cycle could have achieved. Videos of the overcrowding have gone viral. Images of Filipino fans squeezed into inadequate spaces while empty seats exist on show courts have been shared millions of times. The hashtag demanding answers is trending. This is not going away quietly. Now, here's where the story takes a twist that is almost too perfect to be fiction. While the suits in Melbourne were scrambling to write damage control press releases, while the Australian Tennis Federation was fielding angry calls from the ITF, and while Martina Navratilova's words were echoing around the tennis world, Alex Eala herself was busy doing what champions do, winning. Because while all this chaos was unfolding in Australia, Eala had already moved on. She had flown back home to the Philippines to participate in something historic: the inaugural Philippine Women's Open, a WTA 125 tournament that marks a new era for Southeast Asian tennis. And if the Australian Open didn't want to give her the center stage she deserved, the Philippines certainly did. The narrative here is pure cinema. Fresh off the heartbreak and disrespect of Melbourne, Alex Eala stepped onto the court at the iconic Rizal Memorial Sports Complex not as a victim, but as a conquering hero. The reception she received was unlike anything tennis has seen in recent memory. Thousands of fans packed the stadium. The energy was electric. This wasn't polite applause. This was raw, unbridled passion. This was a nation embracing its daughter. Her opponent was Alina Kariva, a Russian player who carried a psychological edge into the match. Back in 2020, Kariva had defeated Eala in straight sets. That loss had lingered in Eala's mind, a thorn from her junior days, a reminder of a time when she wasn't quite ready. But the Alex Eala of 2026 is an entirely different proposition. She's faster, she's stronger, she's more mature, and most importantly, she was angry. From the very first ball, the difference in class was palpable. Eala didn't just want to win this match. She wanted to make a statement. She wanted to erase the memory of that previous defeat. She wanted to send a message not just to Kariva, but to everyone who had doubted her, disrespected her, or underestimated her. And she delivered that message with ruthless efficiency. Eala stormed to a commanding 6-1, 6-2 victory in just 1 hour and 16 minutes. It wasn't even close. It was a demolition. Eala dictated play from the baseline, her forehand cracking like a whip, her movement sharp and aggressive. She broke Kariva in the fourth game of the first set, then again in the sixth, taking the set with an authority that left no doubt about who was in control. The crowd was going absolutely wild. Every point Eala won was celebrated like a championship point. The noise was deafening. This is what tennis should be. This is the passion, the emotion, the connection between player and fan that makes sports transcendent. And the Australian Open schedulers had tried to hide this in a cramped secondary court half a world away. There was one moment in the second set where the ghosts of the past tried to intervene. Kariva, perhaps fueled by desperation or perhaps just catching a hot streak, broke Eala early and jumped out to a 2-love lead. The crowd gasped. Was the pressure of playing at home too much? Was the exhaustion from the international travel catching up to her? For a brief, flickering moment, it seemed like the script might be flipped. But champions don't fold. Champions adapt. Alex Eala called for a medical timeout, a savvy tactical move that allowed her to reset both physically and mentally. Some observers wondered if she was actually injured or if this was gamesmanship. Frankly, it doesn't matter. It was legal, it was smart, and it worked. When Eala returned to the court, she was a woman possessed. What happened next was nothing short of extraordinary. Eala reeled off 5 consecutive games, breaking Kariva's serve repeatedly and breaking her spirit along with it. The Russian had no answers. Every strategy she tried, Eala countered. Every weapon she deployed, Eala neutralized. By the time Eala closed out the match, Kariva looked shell-shocked, like someone who had just been hit by a truck. After the match, with the crowd still roaring, Alex Eala gave an interview that has already become iconic in the Philippines. Yanong labong Pinoy DBA? I mean, I don't know where it comes from, and it's just natural, she said, her face beaming with pride. Translated, she said, that's the Filipino fight, right? I mean, I don't know where it comes from, and it's just natural. That quote is everything. It's pride. It's identity. It's a declaration that she's not just playing for herself, but for an entire nation. Within hours, that phrase was being printed on t-shirts, shared on social media, and turned into memes. It captured the essence of what Alex Eala represents to the Philippines: hope, excellence, and the unbreakable fighting spirit that Filipinos are known for worldwide. The statistics from the match tell the story of complete dominance. Eala finished with a 77% winning rate on her first serve. She hit 21 winners compared to Kariva's 14. She committed fewer unforced errors. She won more than 70% of her total points. This wasn't luck. This was a masterclass. And the message was clear. If you won't respect me in Melbourne, you will hear me from Manila. If you won't put me on your show courts, I'll create my own show. I'll bring my fans. I'll build my own stage. And I'll prove to you that you made a massive mistake. The Philippine Women's Open represents something bigger than just one tournament. It's a statement about the future of Asian tennis. For decades, the Philippines has been a basketball nation. Tennis has always been a niche sport, something that the elite played at country clubs, but that never captured the mass imagination. Alex Eala is changing that. She's making tennis cool. She's making it accessible. She's inspiring a generation of young Filipinos to pick up rackets instead of basketballs. The WTA recognizes this. That's why they sanctioned this tournament. That's why they're investing in the region. Because the future of women's tennis isn't just in Eastern Europe or North America anymore. It's in Asia. And Alex Eala is leading that charge. Unfortunately, not all the Filipino players found success in the first round. Tenielle Mides and Elizabeth Abarquet both fell in their opening matches, disappointing the home crowds. But that only heightened the pressure on Eala, and she responded brilliantly. She's now the flag bearer, the sole Filipino player advancing into the second round, where she'll face the winner of the match between Nao Hibino and Jimeno Sakitsum. The expectations are enormous, but if her first-round performance is any indication, Eala is more than ready to carry that weight. This wasn't just a victory. This was a statement. This was a massacre dressed up in tennis whites. The final score read 6-3, 6-4, but those numbers don't capture the psychological dominance Pegula displayed. Madison Keys, the defending champion, a player known for her explosive power and aggressive baseline game, was rendered completely impotent. Pegula's game plan was perfect. She absorbed Keys' pace, redirected the ball with surgical precision, and frustrated her opponent into a spiral of unforced errors. Keys kept trying to blast winners. Pegula kept sending them back. Keys tried to out-hit Pegula. Pegula simply outthought her. It was a tactical masterclass, a demonstration that in modern tennis, brains can absolutely beat brawn. What made this even more painful for Keys was that she could see it happening and couldn't stop it. She knew Pegula's patterns. They've practiced together thousands of times. They've discussed strategy on their podcast. But knowing what's coming and being able to counter it are two different things. Pegula was simply better on the day, and the scoreline reflected that. Pegula didn't drop a set. She marched into the quarterfinals looking like a player on a mission. And the ruthlessness with which she dispatched her best friend should serve as a warning to everyone else in the draw. Jessica Pegula is here to win, and she doesn't care whose feelings get hurt in the process. After the match, both players handled it with class. They hugged at the net. They exchanged words of encouragement. But you could see the pain in Keys' eyes. Losing at a Grand Slam always hurts. Losing to your best friend hurts even more. Knowing that you'll have to go back to the hotel, maybe share a meal, maybe record a podcast episode together, all while processing this defeat. That's a unique kind of torture. For Pegula, this win cements her status as one of the most consistent players on tour. She's often criticized for lacking the big weapons that other top players possess. She doesn't have Swiatek's forehand or Sabalenka's serve. But what she does have is an incredibly high tennis IQ, exceptional court coverage, and mental toughness that refuses to crack. Those qualities carried her through today, and they might just carry her all the way to the title. The women's quarterfinals are shaping up beautifully. We have power players, tacticians, veterans, and young stars all colliding. The level of tennis has been exceptional, and the drama, as evidenced by the Pegula-Keys match, has been off the charts. So where does all this leave us? Let's take stock of the chaos. We have an Australian Open engulfed in accusations of racism and gross incompetence regarding the treatment of Alex Eala. We have Martina Navratilova leading the charge for accountability, demanding answers within 24 hours, and raising the specter of ITF intervention. We have Alex Eala herself rising from the ashes of disrespect to claim a dominant victory on home soil in Manila, sending a message that she is bigger than any court they try to confine her to. We have Jannik Sinner surviving what might have been a tournament-ending collapse due to extreme heat. We have Taylor Fritz's body breaking down in real time, playing through pain that should have kept him off the court entirely. We have Lorenzo Musetti reaching new career heights while battling the emotional pain of being separated from his newborn son. We have Novak Djokovic getting yet another favorable break, resting while his rivals destroy each other. And we have Jessica Pegula proving that in professional sports, there are no friends on the other side of the net. This is tennis in 2026. This is the reality beneath the polite veneer. This is what happens when money, national pride, physical limits, and personal ambition all collide in the pressure cooker of a Grand Slam. The question now is what happens next. Will the Australian Tennis Federation respond adequately to the ultimatum regarding Alex Eala's treatment? Will they acknowledge the failures and commit to meaningful change? Or will they issue another toothless corporate apology and hope the story goes away? The Filipino tennis community isn't backing down. Martina Navratilova isn't backing down. The eyes of the ITF are watching. This could genuinely result in policy changes that affect how Grand Slams schedule matches and allocate court space for decades to come.
Best moment, I think, was the happiest I've ever been was winning first Wimbledon. But again, my family wasn't there. We couldn't share it. I didn't even know if my...
Alex, after a terrific year last year, how does it feel to be making your main draw debut at Melbourne?
It feels great. I'm super excited. Coming